On today's show, we're talking about a brand new clip from Rise of Skywalker. And then we're also discussing Queen and Slim's Golden Globe snub and Benioff and Weiss. They have found a new project after leaving Star Wars. Good morning, everyone, and a very happy Friday to you. Welcome to this Heroes and Villains edition of Collider Movie Talk. Got a good panel today. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Vinnie.
Hey, Perri.
How you doing?
Good.
Neither of you dressed the part.
No.
Well, you did. Jeff didn't. That's
I'm
what
always
I meant.
dressed as a villain.
It's heroes and villains. We are cosplaying.
You're wearing a Friday the 13th show. You get a pass.
Yeah, he's repping.
I feel like maybe we should talk to heroes and villains, and they should make a whole villain line just for you. And it should just be like Jeff Sneider wear.
Jeff Snyder's face on a t-shirt.
I know a few people who would buy that.
Would you get this
Literally
Klingon shirt? I think this is one of my favorite things. This and the Warriors of Mandalore line, because that had a really cool jacket that, I'm always freezing here in LA because that's a normal thing. So I wore that for like half the week. But if you guys want to get your hands on any Heroes and Villains attire, heroesvillains.com, and then use the promo code TALK10 at checkout. And I've been telling you all week what they're doing is a countdown to the release of Rise of Skywalker, and every single day leading up to the release, there's a different deal happening that you could add that TALK10 code on top of. And today the deal is with certain purchases, you're entered to win tickets to Galaxy's Edge. So I would check out the site, heroesvillains.com, find out how to win those. All right. Moving into topic number 1 today. So I'm going to give you a little warning before we even discuss this, because I know some of you out there do want to go into Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker knowing absolutely nothing about the story. If you are in that group, this clip is not for you. That's it. I'm stopping right there, and now I'm going to actually talk about it. All right. So this new clip shows Kylo Ren exploring a planet. We don't really know where he is, but it involves some sort of encounter with Palpatine. And I don't know. There's a lot. Jeff, you're already starting. We're only like 3 minutes into the show. I will then turn to you, Vinnie. What do you make of this clip? What do you think it means for the story overall?
Well, first of all, I think it's kind of surprising how spoilery it is. This is the part of the marketing train I'm not a big fan of, where they're like trying to get the casuals in. So they're like, we're going all in, and that usually ends up a little spoilery. But this is it pretty much changes the 2 movies before it. Just this little clip, because it confirms that Palpatine has been pulling the strings. You just gave me a look that was like...
It's just because whenever I look at a piece of promo material that's released well before the movie, and it makes me think that something's being spoiled, usually I'm wrong about it. And the way that this clip plays, we're calling it a clip, but it doesn't feel like a full clip from the movie. It almost feels like maybe something is actually being intercut, because you know how it fades to black often? What if... I don't know. This is something that's being intercut with Rey having a very similar experience, because that line that he gives and how that line morphs into different voiceover from different characters, it kind of in a way mimics the Force vision that she had in Force Awakens.
I think that's why they specifically included him saying "my boy," which is really just hearing Ian. I always mess that guy's name up. Ian McDermott. See, there's so many letters in it. Ian McDermott, just hearing him like chew the line like "my boy," like he just adds like syllables to it that aren't in the word. Like that is exciting. But you're right. I do think this could be some editing trickery. But just the fact that apparently Andy Serkis and James Earl Jones provided voice work at all is kind of surprising, because I don't think we heard about that beforehand.
No, I don't think I was aware of it. There's such like a jumble of information in my brain from the past 2+ years that I don't even know what I knew anymore. Jeff, did you watch the clip? What did you make of it?
I did not watch the clip.
I knew you didn't.
I'm trying to go into the Rise of Skywalker.
He's just
super
such a big
pure.
Fan. He's just such a big fan.
Yeah,
he didn't
I
want to
can't
get
have
spoiled.
these big moments spoiled for me.
I would believe that statement in most situations. Not today.
He's a diehard. He didn't want to spoil the movie.
I just keep thinking of Brian Cox from Succession being like, "Kylo Ren, you're my number 1 boy."
That is.
I hear that, but then I also hear the flip side where it's like F off.
Yeah, I don't know the mythology of Star Wars enough to be keeping track of who's pulling what strings.
Do you know who Palpatine is?
No idea. He's an old man. I know that.
That's true.
The Emperor.
Okay.
Sidious.
Emperor Palpatine. That makes That makes sense. I've heard that before.
Oh man! All right,
Sidious? Darth Sidious?
Yeah, we got to give you
I knew he was a Darth.
We got to give you a little primer. I also think
Darth.
it's like a major missed opportunity that no one out there has done. You know, like Palpatine or Snoke removed and put Brian Cox from Succession in that chair, talking to Hux and Kylo. That would be great stuff.
Can you do that for us, please?
No cursing on the show.
Let's get Danny Aiello. R.I.P.
Wow.
All right, how did we get there?
Because I've been doing quotes from him all morning.
All right,
Jeff's been screaming Danny Aiello quotes.
I was ready to be doing Danny Aiello.
I walked in here like 8:30 in the morning.
Yes,
I just heard
my
Jeff
boy.
screaming Danny Aiello quotes.
Well, I mean, this is going to come right smack in the middle of our Star Wars segment now. But I'll just read you the brief post that Variety did this morning. That
we don't have to do.
We brought it up at this point. Respectfully, I would like to actually finish the conversation and honor his legacy. So Danny Aiello, who of course you might recognize from Do the Right Thing and Moonstruck, he did pass away. He was 86. So those are some of his most famous titles right there. But Jeff, as someone who has been brushing up on quotes this morning, anything from his body of work you want to highlight?
I mean, I love The Professional. Obviously, I love Do the Right Thing. He should have been in a Star Wars movie. What, there are no Italian Americans up in space?
Yeah. There's plenty of Italian Americans.
Well, Danny Aiello should have been up there. He was great. Good in Moonstruck as well.
Yes, very. Would you like to add anything,
I
Vinnie?
do like a Moonstruck. A Moonstruck is like, I know it's an odd choice out of his entire body of work, but that to me was, I don't know, when you say his name, I was like, oh yeah, the guy from Moonstruck of all things. So yeah, it's a bummer, especially just directly in the middle of our Star Wars chat. But yeah, no, it's
I gave you the heads up on when to bring it up. Didn't listen to me. But our thoughts to his friends, family, and colleagues. And, you know, if you have the time, just scroll through his IMDb page and queue up a movie he was in, because you're in good shape if you pick one of them. And I think you'll enjoy it. All right. Let's go back to a little Star Wars talk, but we're going to move into a different section of this story, because obviously the press campaign is well underway for this movie, and the stars and J.J. Abrams have been out and about speaking about just about everything right now. And probably no surprise, but a little bit of a hot topic is how they take Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi and how they evolve the things that he introduced in that movie in Rise of Skywalker. Here's a particular quote we want to read from J.J. Abrams that he said to Yahoo Entertainment about Rian. And it's funny because one of the things that I was thinking at first was, oh, I really want to see all the friends together. And in his story, as in Rian, they really weren't. Rey doesn't really meet Poe until the end. Rey and Finn are not really together in the movie. So in a way, the story that he told in a lot of ways helped set up what we were doing in 9. But it also allowed Episode 9 to have the group together and out on an adventure in a way that was weirdly, even though it's the third film, it's the first time they all get to be together. One more little piece to this one here. But there were a lot of details and story points that Rian set up in Last Jedi that we run with in this movie. I don't think this movie would have been nearly what it is without the choices that Rian made, so I'm nothing but grateful. First, guys, these two quotes in particular, what do you make of them? And then we can kind of open the door up to anything else that's been discussed from the folks involved in Rise of Skywalker thus far.
I mean, I don't know. It's a very nice quote. It's something that again, it's him clarifying some previous statements. Every time J.J. Abrams talks about The Last Jedi, it's just like, what he's saying sounds nice, but he's like also very clearly saying that he's going to change what happened in The Last Jedi. Like, I don't know. There's always this underlying like confirmation that he's like, I appreciate that movie so much, and I am going to change everything that happened in it. Like that's what it sounds like to me. I don't know if you agree, but to me, whenever J.J. Abrams talks about The Last Jedi, it's, I don't know. It weirds me out. It gives me the heebie-jeebies every time.
Jeff, I'm genuinely curious. As someone who doesn't know like the nitty-gritty details and kind of like harp on some things that we might have had from the past film, like what do you make of a statement like this? How much weight do you put into it?
Zero weight at all, because these are all lies. None of this is real. All these quotes, not one single solitary Star Wars thought out of any one of their mouths is legitimate.
Oh, I think
no
that's
one's
not
telling
true.
you the truth. It's all diplomacy. It's all very commendable.
Well, it's kinda.
No one is being honest about their real thoughts about these movies. They have a movie to sell.
that's kind of what I was saying, but like way quieter and way less aggressive.
I genuinely don't think that's true.
I don't think it's true either.
I think that if someone involved in Rise truly, strongly disliked Last Jedi, no, we're not going to hear about it in the press tour. But, having sat and done my own interviews, having listened to a million other interviews, there are some very genuine answers out there because some of the people involved in this franchise are truly passionate about it. So I think maybe that applies to a certain section of quotes that we're reading right now, but maybe not the entirety of the press campaign.
For what Ryan did, and he set up 8, set up 9. Can you believe it? That's how movies work.
I think the interesting thing is it speaks to the nature of a press tour, which has been going on for like how long? How many interviews have they done? Like if you put me in like 18 straight interviews, I would probably say something dumb eventually. Like these people, it's just like these quotes. I don't even know what interviews they're coming from anymore because they're just popping out day after day after day.
Yeah, they've been popping out every day for 5 years or something like that.
Since
the press tour started the day these people were cast. Yeah. Because every question that doesn't matter whether John Boyega's off doing some other movie. He's only being asked about Star Wars. So the press tour has lasted years, and I just can't wait to not hear anything else about Star Wars from any of these actors.
Well, that's not going to happen.
I know. Because you know what the next wave of it is? It's always looking back. It's like,
right.
We're going to tease this eventually, but on Collider Ladies Night, I did ask Karen Gillan. I mean, it was, a little bit of a joke, but I asked her, do you ever do an interview for any movie and not get asked about Marvel? And the truth of the matter is, no, they're going to get asked constantly.
Because journalists are terrible these days. That's why.
All right, here you go, Jeff. So when you find an interview or a piece of reporting that you really like, where do you go to find it and when? What types of interviews have that information that you think has real truth and value to it?
I mean, profiles from the New York Times or Vulture.
But isn't that where this came from? Wasn't one of the bad quotes from the New York Times that started this whole problem?
I'm hesitant to confirm that because I can't really remember, and all I have right now are the Yahoo quotes in my face. But you might be right on that.
The Boyega, not to just be like gotcha, but that's where the Boyega and Abrams thing started. So it's just it's a widespread problem. I wouldn't say it's a problem. I wouldn't say that all journalists are bad these days because I'm not like Clint Eastwood. It's just I don't know. It's a problem though. I would say it's a problem because the story is the argument. So you try and, even if you're doing it subconsciously, if you're doing the interview, you're like, I need those meaty argument quotes. So
but is it an argument? Journalists are just trying to stir up beef with these kinds of things.
I feel like we're agreeing, but we're just yelling at each other. This is the problem. I feel like when you go to these interviews, there's so little value because no one's seen the movie.
Right, you haven't seen the movie. Why?
So
why, if you were I would just never do it. If you were a journalist, why even agree
to
go to a junket for a movie that you can't see?
Because we got to keep the lights on.
Because you got to be there. Because you got to be there so we can ask these actors questions about this movie that we haven't seen. It's wild to me.
We can't not cover a Star Wars.
I do have to refute that a little because it takes time to come up with interesting questions when you haven't seen the movie. It's like we do that at Comic-Con all the time where they're previewing all the upcoming movies.
Sure, and I understand that.
Do I prefer to see a movie before I do an interview? Yes, at all times. Always, always, always. There are certain scenarios where you just can't, and it's just about being creative and doing your homework and finding that angle that no one else is going to get.
That's why I don't agree that all journalists are bad, because there are people like Perri who go to these things and they haven't seen the movie, but they come up with creative angles for
absolutely
but they're not gonna get a hard they're not gonna get a scoop from these junket interviews. You know what I mean?
But wouldn't it be great if the editors-in-chiefs of all these sites, of all these blogs that we read, if they all got together and they said, you know what, we're going to make a united stand and we're going to say, Disney, we're not going to do your Star Wars junket until we see the movie.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then Disney would be like, okay. And then they'd continue to sell 1 billion tickets either way.
That's never going to happen. And, I understand why they made that choice at the risk of, not letting spoilers get out, even though every journalist I know that attends these junket is very responsible with that information. But I don't know. I still think there is some great content out there. Some of the quotes are better than others. And it's just about exploring, finding the sites that you could rely on. And, this is a great opportunity to plug our own stuff. I think that we came together as a team really well. We came up with those supercut questions. We came up with the questions that we asked JJ that get at specific bits of Rise of Skywalker and plot points that you could expect to see explored more. And I think they were good conversations. I was very proud of the work we did.
I agree.
What I'm loving is just like you can clearly hear like the fatigue. All these actors are ready to be done with this franchise. Let me tell you,
That I can understand.
Wait to never see the inside of a Star Wars set again.
Well, that's why we always discuss the part of this, like, yeah, it's the greatest opportunity in the world to get a Star Wars, Marvel, DC gig.
But these are life-changing thing.
These are franchises, though, that you are working on for a significant amount of time. And if you're the kind of actor who, wants to make a big movie and a couple small movies in between, you have less time to spread around when you are, obligated to appear in a 3-film series. And these films take how long to make? And then you have to do the press tour. So that fatigue, I do understand.
Sure. I'm just saying, like, John Boyega is going to be asked about these 3 movies for the next 50 years of his life. And I'm sure he would never I'm sure he has no regrets.
I think it's for
that is a big price to pay.
I think it's for the extent of their lives. Like, I don't think anybody who is in a Star Wars movie is ever going to be not asked about being in Star Wars.
I mean, Mark, that's the role. That Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker. He's in something. You're like, oh, they cast Luke Skywalker in it. That's cool. Like, it's just like that's what happens when you get these roles. I think even people like Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. You're like, oh, look, it's Captain America. It's just, it comes with the, extremely absurd amount of money and fame that comes with the role. It's like, oh, that's a shame. But is it? Is it a shame? Like, it's a double-edged sword where you're like, yeah, they're probably really tired.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. They're probably really tired, and I wouldn't want to do interview after interview after interview, and it's a bummer, and it takes up so much of your time. But also, like, you're in a Star Wars movie.
Well, so that's what I have noticed on this press tour is just people seem to be they just want to be done with it. Yeah. Adam Driver does not want to be talking about Kylo Ren and all these different theories. He wants to be slugging marriage story.
I got the exact opposite.
I was going to say, strangely enough, Adam Driver,
him maybe more so than anyone.
But I do think that's because
he's trying to win an Oscar this year.
I also think that's because he has like the best, meatiest role in these. Like, he has something to talk about. Like, Kylo Ren's arc is the most interesting part of these movies, and Adam Driver is a big part of that because he's such a good actor. And I think that's why he comes off as being the most into it, because he kind of is the most into it on screen.
Like, what was with this Finn and Poe aren't boyfriends story that made the rounds a week or two ago?
Well, they should be boyfriends.
Where did that come out of?
The fact that they should be boyfriends. That's very.
But how does this come from, like, this idea that fans have where, oh, it would be so great if they could be boyfriends, to then a journalist asking them about it and like, how does
I think Oscar Isaac brought it. I think Oscar Isaac was like, yeah, I'm bummed that didn't happen.
Is he? Or is that a great quote?
I don't know. Those are the kinds of things that I really love about fandom. When you see a movie like Force Awakens and you are so into the chemistry that John Boyega and Oscar Isaac have, that you come up with hopes for future films and fan fiction of your own. And then that also is one of the coolest things about press tours to me. It's like anytime I get the opportunity to do an interview, there's a million things that go through my head. But one is, what would our audience engage with most? What are they most excited to hear? Do they want to hear their theories brought up to these actors? It's like the back and forth with that is something that I really like to engage with.
I think there's enough on screen to justify that. Have you seen the way that Poe looks at Finn? there's enough. It's there.
I'm pretty sure
it didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't come out of nowhere.
I think they refuted that at this point, but the point is accurate. I see it. All right. Let's move on from these quotes to another hot set of quotes here. So, at the 2019 Golden Globe nominations, you might have noticed that none were given to the movie Queen and Slim. And now we've got the director of that movie, Melina Matsoukas, and she's got some quotes out right now that say that a lot of people in the HFPA just didn't see her movie. I'm going to read a good deal of these quotes because we do have to discuss them all in detail here. So here is what she told Variety. She says, "It's extremely discouraging, it's extremely infuriating, and it just represents an archaic system that is full of people who don't value us." She goes on to explain, We held 3 screenings for the HFPA and almost no members attended. For me, it's reflective of their voting body. It's not reflective of the society in which we live in or the industry as it stands today. They don't value the stories that represent all of us, and those stories are so often disregarded and discredited, as are their filmmakers. She went on to say a little while later, I was warned by 3 different people. This is just to give you a little background on this quote, actually. This was from an HFPA fundraiser that she attended before even finishing Queen and Slim. This was her experience there. I was warned by 3 different people that I may be harassed or spoken to in an inappropriate way, which I was, and they used a very archaic term in that pitch, and I found it quite offensive and disrespectful to me as a woman of color. She goes on, I think there's an extremely long way to go. I'm always going to be hopeful because that's who I am, but I don't have a lot of faith in any institutions in this country because they have always discredited and disregarded work by women and people of color. The fact that 5 women have ever been nominated for directing in the lifetime of the Academy is infuriating. It's obviously very imbalanced until the body of the people voting on the projects reflects our society and the people making these projects, there will be no change. Jeff, I'm going to you first on this one. First, let's just get in general. What do you make of these quotes?
They're head scratchers to me. I don't think that Melina Matsoukas or Alma Harrell have come off looking very good in the last couple of days. I really liked Queen and Slim. I thought it was great. I was probably the first person out in front of that movie. But when you say that, no members attended these screenings, you've sent out DVDs. How do we know that they're not watching them at home? Like, I don't understand that argument that only 3 or 4 people RSVP'd out of the 90 members of the HFPA. You don't know who's watching it at home. You don't know who's going as a +1 to some other screening that wasn't just for HFPA members. I find this whole, and it's like, if you want people to see your movie, you know what? Release it January 1st. Don't release it at Thanksgiving. You have to understand, people don't see every movie, and people have to make choices. We haven't seen every movie, have we?
No.
And that's our job. Okay, so voters, it's not necessarily their job to see every movie. It is a privilege, and I think that they should try to see every movie. But these people are working professionals. They don't always have time. And so half the battle is for a studio and their award strategists to make sure that screener is at the top of the pile, or to literally, like, what do we have to do to make you see this movie in a theater? So if it's not that it's necessarily a failure of the HFPA, it's a failure of Universal and its strategists, that if that's really the problem, that people didn't watch the movie, that is on the studio.
Well, the failure of the HFPA might be what she said about the experience she had before finishing Queen and Slim. I mean, I don't know the details of that encounter, but it doesn't sound like it was very pleasant. And, if something like that did bleed into these awards times screenings, then that is problematic. But I kind of can't refute anything you say, because as much as it pains me to admit this, yeah, it is. It's impossible to watch. It is absolutely impossible to watch everything. And that's what I do. I create a pile with my screeners and I prioritize them for a whole variety of reasons.
And some movie is at the bottom of that pile. And sometimes it's going to be your movie. And the other thing is this: if the HFPA is this disgusting organization that just cares about freebies and swag and taking their photos with celebrities, and they're saying offensive things in movie pitches when they come up to you, then what do you care? What do you care about getting a nomination from these horrible people?
Yeah, that's kind of always been my view of the Golden Globe. I mean, it's a pretty gross situation all around, but like the Golden Globes are just ultra gross in a in a system that's already gross. Like, I don't know, there's just something about, like you said, I don't know if I'd even be, I mean, obviously people want the Golden Globes noms and they want to win, but of all the award shows, that one, it always boggles my mind why we care about it so much. Like, what is it about the Golden Globes?
Because it's televised. That's why. Because people tune in for the ceremony. That's the only reason. Fair. The Critics' Choice Awards are televised as well, right?
That they are.
Nobody watches those. Yeah. Nobody cares. But the Golden Globes have ratings, and so they have this importance or this fake influence. It's just crazy to me. I mean, there's a lot of issues at play here, but the whole, well, if I wasn't nominated, then I wasn't considered. That blows my mind.
Yeah,
like, how do you know that people weren't sitting there having this conversation in their heads or with other members being like, well, what'd you think of Queen of Slim?
Oh.
You don't know.
We don't know any of this for sure. Just to add a little background from the Variety article here, they did write that while home DVD screeners were sent to the voting members of the HFPA to view at their leisure, Universal Pictures apparently did not have confidence that the members watched the film even at home, and they canceled a previously scheduled press conference with the cast.
But why? Why didn't they have confidence that they watched it at home? Like
it does not explain why. I don't know.
That's what bothers me is they're like, we didn't get nominated, so they must not have watched it. There's a big leap there. Like, it's
not like the HFPA is like this straight white male organization. It's a group of foreign journalists. Yeah. Now, maybe the old adage of black films don't travel internationally is coming into play here. Maybe the films don't travel internationally because the journalists responsible for sort of spreading the word in those countries aren't doing their jobs. But you would think that this group of foreign journalists who are technically minorities in their own right would support a movie like this.
Just to back up a little here, I am curious what your take is on Queen and Slim's, not Oscar chances necessarily, but Oscar value to begin with. If you were choosing the nominees, would you have Queen and Slim in the mix?
It's not the HFPA that is the only people ignoring this movie or something. Like, it's clearly just not getting the awards traction that I thought it would at the start of the season. Do I think this movie is one of the 10 best movies I've seen this year? Probably not. I think it's a great first film. I really thought Jodie Turner-Smith was incredible. Melina did a great job. So did Lena Waithe. Like, it should be in the conversation, but just because it's falling on the outside of the actual nominees doesn't mean there's some horrible conspiracy afoot. I'm sorry. It's not an undeniable movie.
I still haven't seen it. So
controversial. It's definitely divisive.
I'm part of the problem.
I really would recommend seeing it. Just to answer my own question there, I do think this is a movie that should be in the conversation. I think Jodie Turner-Smith is great, but I will also say if you want to see like a next level Daniel Kaluuya performance that continues to prove that he can do anything, the kind of chemistry he strikes up with her in this not only is special in this movie, but it's like a unique chemistry that I've never really seen before. So there are a lot of things that I think would be very deserving of nominations, but when it comes to what we do on Collider FYC, which is predicting a movie's chances, even after seeing it, and even after I convinced myself that it deserves these nominations, that didn't change the fact that we always go back to this. The buzz for it just wasn't strong enough.
Listen, everyone who I've talked to about Queen and Slim, who have really liked the movie, there's a part of it where it's the sex scene juxtaposed against this scene of violence with a young boy, and it just doesn't work. And it is the sort of flaw that a first-time, it's the sort of mistake that a first-time filmmaker would make. But like when I read this Melina Matsoukas quote that says, when asked what message she'd share with HFPA members, she said, "Your time is over. I believe they've created an unsafe work environment." What are you talking about? What? Your time is over, HFPA? I believe that the HFPA has created an unsafe work environment. These are like these explosive, inflammatory statements that it's gobbledygook. It's fairy dust. What does this mean?
But I think she'd know better than I. Like, I don't know what goes down at the HFPA. Like, quotes like that are so explosive, I almost don't want to touch myself because, like, she knows better than I do. I'm not in those meetings, and I remember what happened to Brendan Fraser. That whole thing happened recently. There's a bad vibe to it. There's a bad vibe to it, and I don't want to be the one to be like, make a statement either way. So she would know better than I would in that regard.
Yeah, I would kind of echo that. I mean, this is, these are big quotes, but it is a surface level report in a sense that doesn't really get into the truth or whether or not these accusations are false. I mean, there has been great concern over the HFPA and what their awards stand for and everything. But, until we get a little more of a, an investigative piece on the situation over there, that last quote is, it's alarming in a multitude of ways.
It's just, listen, I realize what you're saying when Melina Matsoukas would know better than I, and that may be true, but she's also a little too close to it. And everyone thinks that they've made a masterpiece. And, sometimes it takes critics or Oscar bloggers, whoever, to bring you back down to earth. And the other thing is, where she's saying, she's hearing this from awards strategists and consultants. The people on her team told her that only 3 or 4 people went to see it. I'm telling you, you can't even trust those people. The people on your team, you can't even trust those people. It's what I've always said about rule number one of reporting. Don't believe what actors say, because actors don't know, because the agents are just telling the actors what they want to hear. And that's what award strategists are paid to do. They're paid to tell people what they want to hear. So rather than Melina, you made a movie that's been a little divisive. Instead, they say, Melina, only 3 or 4 people even came to see it. They didn't even give you a fair shot. Like, I'm sorry.
Again, I can't say that what they state in this variety piece is 100% true, but if I'm saying what I think could have happened, yeah, I think it could have been a real possibility that Queen and Slim could have been at the bottom of the pile, and that's why it didn't get any nominations. But one way or the other, it's, the sad truth is that's how the game is played, and I think if you want to change that game, it is on you to speak up against it. So perhaps there is some good with some people calling out the HFPA for maybe not putting as much weight into certain types of movies in the long run.
But then the question becomes like, why was Queen and Slim so often the movie at the bottom of the pile? Like, if that's how it is, if that's how it's done, that's how it's done. But if there's a pile and more people than not had that movie at the bottom, then the question was, why that movie? It's kind of like how horror movies, they don't get nominated for anything because people are like, that's not what this is about. Why would Queen and Slim be like, oh, that's not what this whole process is about? That's
the big question, and the answer to that question, will kind of give us a sense of what the real problem is here.
But you're not even in the pile though if you're not coming out at November. Okay, so next time, if you think you're not going to be at the top of that pile, come out in February, March, April, May, so that voters have a chance to see the movie. They have 10 months to watch it. And they can watch stuff in the spring and the summer.
That's a strategy thing, though. It's like there are a lot.
Clearly backfired then coming out in November.
It did not entirely backfire on them because box office wise, not only did this movie have a stronger opening than expected, but it's holding on fairly well. And I, for one, have predicted a good third weekend in theaters. So I think it was a smart box office strategy. Specifically talking about awards, you could have that narrative in so many different ways where, sometimes when movies come out earlier in the year, we're like, oh, well, they did well then, and then we forgot about them. But then there's other situations where that is the thing. It's a case-by-case basis. Yes, maybe award season-wise, Queen and Slim would have benefited from coming out earlier in the year and giving people more time to see it. You still run the risk of being forgotten, but then we also have movies like, I don't know, Richard Jewell and Little Women that are December releases, and maybe all of a sudden, even though they've been left out of certain conversations, they could wind up seeing a groundswell late in the game and upsetting things we think right now are the favorites.
And I wouldn't write off Queen and Slim either. I think that, Academy voters still have like another month to watch this movie. The HFPA had early deadlines. Again, you're compressing all this movie watching into a very short period of time. So maybe that's part of it. But every studio has to make a decision between, are we chasing box office or are we chasing awards? Sometimes those go together and sometimes they conflict. And clearly the studio chose the box office route this time. I'm glad it's paying off for them. But with awards, this has become a sort of forgotten also ran.
Yeah. All right. We are going to move on now, but do share your thoughts if you've seen Queen and Slim. Did you like it? Do you think it's award worthy? We would love to hear what you think as well. All right. We got some cool stuff coming your way on the Collider Video YouTube channel this week, like Collider Mailbag. Here's a promo.
Hey everyone, John Roca here, the host of Collider Mailbag. A new episode drops every Saturday and Sunday in your face and in your ears, answering the questions from you fans about the world of entertainment, film, and television. Me and great guests from our sphere do the best to answer your questions from Twitter, from Instagram, and of course, email as well, every Saturday and Sunday.
So while you might have to wait to see 2 episodes of Collider Mailbag this week, you know what you could watch right after Movie Talk and Collider Live today? You could watch a lengthy conversation with Karen Gillan because she was my guest on Ladies Night. She is an absolute delight. She's great in Jumanji. You know her as Nebula, and she's also building up quite the resume behind the lens as well. And I did just watch her first feature and as a director, and it's very impressive. So check out that conversation. It's a great time. And another reminder, if you want cool shirts like this, heroesvillains.com, use the promo code TALK10. All right. Last story today. Oh, I don't think this is like a super heated one, but you never know what's going to happen here on Movie Talk.
What a day.
So David Benioff and D.B. Weiss have lined up their first project after departing the Star Wars trilogy. This project is for Warner Brothers, and it's being described as an untitled thriller inspired by the graphic novel Lovecraft. I find it interesting that Karan Kusama is actually an executive producer on this one. Briefly, the logline offered by Deadline. They write that I'm told the movie asks a horrifying question. What if H.P. Lovecraft wasn't making it up? What if the monsters he created are real? And this movie apparently is going to be set in 1920. So you guys hear this after that hot topic of them departing the Star Wars film franchise. Do you think this is a good move for them to have picked up this project next?
I like how you said it's not a heated topic, because nothing has been more chill than the topic of David Benioff and T.B. Weiss over the past couple of months.
You know what I mean. When not applied to Star Wars and or Game of Thrones.
Again, this goes back to what we were saying. Can you separate them from what they've done before? It's just such an interesting story. They got kicked. They left. They departed Star Wars on their own decision completely, because they didn't have enough time in the day because of their Netflix deal. And their next project is a film for Warner Brothers. So I guess they found some time in their day to do another movie. I don't know. It's odd. It's odd. The report did mention that talks were happening for this before the Netflix deal, but it's just so weird that the reason they were like, okay, we could possibly do Star Wars because we just gotta focus on Netflix, and like we're gonna make a movie for Warner Brothers. It's I don't know. It's a strange look from the double D's.
Vinny is making my point for me. You cannot believe a word anyone says in Hollywood. It's all about their actions. The actions speak louder than words. So when the Davids or what the D's are saying, whatever their names are.
Oh, no.
I don't watch Game of Thrones either. Surprise. When they say, yeah, we got to go work on our Netflix things, and then they go and do a Warner Brothers thing, like, oh my God, guys. Netflix has to be thrilled with this announcement. I'm sure that this was something that maybe they disclosed, since apparently it's been in the works for years.
I don't know, man. They got 6 figures from Netflix.
Yeah,
6
big
figures.
deal.
It's
And
7.
It was
9.
Or 9. Well,
Yeah, I was like, wait,
nine,
how
nine
many
figures. 9 figures. See, that like breaks my brain that it's 9 figures. They got 9 figures from Netflix, and like, what are they doing? Like, the only thing we've heard from them since that deal is that they're not doing Star Wars, but they are doing a Warner Brothers movie. And it's like, what happened to the 9-figure Netflix deal? I don't know. The movie should be interesting. They're not writing it, so it could be good, but
They haven't even decided if they're directing this, right?
this report says they're directing.
I'd seen a report that said they were still deciding whether.
I think it said they
set
it at Warner Brothers. I mean, I assume they're directing. Why would this even be a story if it
from our report, which was based on the Deadline piece, we wrote Benioff and Weiss will direct.
I mean, yeah. I
don't know if
it's
that's
interesting.
confirmed.
It's interesting, and I do think it's interesting that Karan Kusama is an executive producer.
That's
the
really
thing.
cool.
That's the thing that I've latched onto, because
Yeah,
anytime she puts her name on a project, I'm like, oh, have to prioritize
What if
this.
she
But,
just- Me
but
too. What
otherwise,
if she
this
just
news
directed it?
wouldn't have done anything for me.
Yeah, it's just a really weird story. I mean, who knows if it'll even happen? They said it at Warner Brothers. It's a
true.
currently thing. Apparently, they should probably start making some Netflix shows because they got paid 9 figures to do so.
This is a movie that's about Lovecraft's like monsters and creatures coming to life.
It's
right?
like if
so it's Goosebumps.
It's kind of like Goosebumps. Yeah. No, it's not about it coming to life. It's if all the stuff he wrote is real,
Existed.
and I really like Lovecraft. I don't like him because he was kind of a piece of trash, but I like the whole mythos. It's interesting. I think it's an interesting movie, and I probably would have flown way under the radar if all these names weren't attached to it. But
do people even are people going to see a Lovecraft movie? Because here's what I remember: a lot of commotion around this movie called Tolkien. And you know how much money that thing made? $5.
Yep.
yeah,
You know what the greatest thing to come out of that movie was, though? You know what their press mailer was? It was like a little stick in a piece of dirt, and I swear to God, it came in a bag with no instructions at all. And I took a champagne glass and I plopped the thing in the champagne glass, and it grew. It's the first plant I've ever had where it's grown, but I still never saw the movie.
Yeah, why would you? They give you a stick and a piece of dirt.
It's like the greatest press mailer I got all
But
year.
that movie, I don't know. That's a story for another time. That
But
movie
no,
just looked like you didn't need to see it.
To your
But
point, though, I do not think that anybody out there who isn't already like a massive Lovecraft fan hears something like, what was it, Untitled Lovecraftian Thriller, and says like, that is my most anticipated movie of the coming years.
I think it sounds interesting, but I like I said before, I mentioned this before we started filming. There's a lot of like Lovecraftian elements to the Game of Thrones books that those two dudes were like, let's get rid of that. So when this was announced, that was the first thing I thought of, was like how they just got rid of all the myth elements of Game of Thrones. And it's like, I thought you weren't interested in that. They're just, I think they're just going to keep announcing stuff until something sticks.
Well, that's why I won't put any real weight into this, because, you know, how long and how intensely did we talk about their Star Wars arrangement, and then poof, it's gone?
Yeah.
Haven't seen anything from their Netflix thing yet. Game of Thrones is over, and that Game of Thrones was their claim to fame. So until I see more consistent output that I like,
I think
that's guaranteed to happen.
That not enough hours in the day quote is going to come back to bite them every time they announce something, because the fact that they were like, we don't have nearly enough time, we got to focus on this Netflix stuff, but first we're going to make this big Warner Brothers movie. It's just, I don't know, those dudes, it hasn't been a great couple of months for those guys.
No,
I feel for them, but also they did get 9 figures from Netflix, so I don't.
Yeah,
really
I don't
really feel too bad.
Oh, we're going to keep an eye on this one if it develops. We shall see. But we're rooting for you, Karin Kusama. We're rooting for everybody. We want projects to pan out but we don't know yet.
Just let her direct it. It'll be great.
I want her to direct whatever she wants to direct
that's
next, because I've really liked
great.
just about I think I'd like
Give
everything
her
she's directed.
Give her 9 figures to do whatever she wants.
Seriously. All right, I could get
Someone
behind
out there
that
give
campaign.
her hundreds of millions of dollars.
Let's get into some of these live chat questions here. Where should we start? All right, we got to go with a Friday the 13th question. Luis E. de la Pena is asking, since today is Friday the 13th, is there anything superstitious that you don't do or might do? Thanks, and have a great weekend.
Something
do you have anything superstitious you do on the regular?
Don't do.
Or what about in general, not just necessarily pertaining to Friday the 13th? Do you have any superstitions?
No. I live my life freely without superstitions.
That's probably a healthy way to go about it.
No, nothing I can think of.
I like when the clock hits 11:11.
That's nice.
It's like my whole family. Anytime the clock, it's like 11:11. Make a wish. I don't know.
You know what I do? It's a fantasy football related thing.
Oh no! Don't tell me this.
I do not check the next week until someone is 100% the winner. Okay. And that has always worked out for me.
I can't lie. The thought has crossed my mind.
Yeah, that to me is, I'm like, if I check ahead, I'm getting too cocky and the fantasy football gods will strike me down.
You do know who plays in the Collider League this week?
Uh-oh.
Us too.
Well, don't check. Do not check unless someone is 100%.
Well,
or you'll lose.
I'm gonna heed that advice this week then.
Yeah, I'm telling you. You know, I said I don't have anything.
Right now.
I said I don't have anything, but that to me I was like very superstitious about. So I do have something, and don't do it because you'll lose.
What's your superstition?
I'm not superstitious at all.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't know why.
really.
I thought you might have had one.
I'm quirky. I've got a lot of weird quirks.
Quirks.
I wouldn't call them superstitions.
That's fair.
Okay. I'll let you get away with that one. All right, let's grab a question. Ooh, a Scream question from Steve Calderon.
Whoa.
Hayden Panettiere tweeted a pic of herself channeling maybe her Scream 4 character Kirby. Could she be returning for Scream 5? Kirby's fate is unknown after she was stabbed.
No, that's the answer. No. Goodbye.
Have we spoken about the new Scream movie rumor or report? What do you think it's going to be? A continuation of the story that we know, or a complete reboot?
I think that they need to reboot it. I think I'm done with Sidney Prescott. And I say that as someone with 6 Scream posters over my bed.
Agreed. Yeah, we need a new Scream. I mean, it's funny because we got a new Scream in the TV show, but no one watched it, and so it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah.
Hayden Panettiere tweeted out a photo of her Scream character. Who would even know that's her Scream character?
I haven't even looked at what that picture was. Her character in Scream 4 was super cool, though. I really liked her in the movie.
I'm a big fan of Scream
You
4,
would beat me in Scream trivia because at the end of the day, I'm not watching Scream 4 ever again.
Scream 4 is good.
Really?
I think Scream 4 is one of the better
happen.
Screams.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, get out of here with that.
There's only 4 Screams. What's it better than?
I think
3?
all 4 are
At
great.
least 2. For me, mine is 1, 4, 2, 3.
Wow.
Yeah, and I stick by it.
What's your list?
Better
Jeff?
than 2.
It's better than 2.
No.
What's yours?
2 is the Force Awakens.
Goes right
Scream
in order.
movies.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I think I'd have to go in order too, even though I think 4 might be the more well-constructed movie, but I think 3 beats it out for nostalgia's sake. All right.
1, 4, 2, 3. 1, 4, 2, 3.
Let's get one more question in before we have to say goodbye. This is a really hard question. I'm not doing this.
Give it to us. It's been a rough day. What's the question?
The hard ones.
All right. Chris Robinson is asking, what's your favorite and least favorite Best Picture winners of the 2010s?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know.
Least
All right,
favorite.
wait. Best Picture win. I'm going to make sure we don't forget anything at least.
Yeah. Give me some options because I'm bad at remembering.
All right, here we go. Ready for it?
Yeah.
Green Book, The Shape of Water, Moonlight, Spotlight, Birdman, 12 Years a Slave, Argo, The Artist, The King's Speech, and The Hurt Locker.
My favorite.
Oh, I'm sorry, and Slumdog Millionaire, right? 2009 counts? No, 2000 doesn't.
2010.
Hurt Locker won 2009 so I wouldn't count that. I mean, it won at the 2010 Oscars.
Oh,
but
I see
it was
what
a
I did. I
2009 movie.
went a year beyond.
Yeah.
My favorite by far is Shape of Water. The fact that Guillermo del Toro made a movie about a woman falling in love and having sex with a monster, and then that was decided as the best movie of the year, that gave me faith in movies again. I was like, finally, the stuff that I like is being celebrated. And then I think Green Book won the year after that. So it immediately brought me plummeting back down to earth because that might be my least favorite of that bunch.
Well, I have a film that also involves some controversial sex. They weren't having sex with fish in it. They were having sex with children. It was
no.
Spotlight. Spotlight.
Hey,
Oh,
Jeff.
no,
What a
Jeff.
terrible-
Oh, no,
Bad
Jeff.
segue,
That is
but,
a bad
but yeah,
in
sex-
every
Oh,
way
no.
possible.
Spotlight
We
was...
should not have done this question because we would not have heard that.
Spotlight was terrific, and I'm glad that they made a movie about the guys who brought down those horrible priests in my city.
Dare I ask what your least favorite of the bunch is?
My least favorite of those winners. Can we hear him once more?
Wait, we're
The King's Speech, The Artist.
King's Speech, Artist,
Birdman.
Argo, 12 Years a Slave, Birdman, Spotlight, Moonlight, Shape of Water, Green Book.
I mean, Moonlight didn't do anything for me.
I'm having a very hard time isolating a least favorite, and I think I would just go to the one that I watch the least often, maybe, which is The Artist. I just don't find myself revisiting that one, but my favorite of the bunch, I echo your statement, Vinny, Shape of Water. Everyone knows I'm a big Guillermo fan, but like Guillermo or not, that movie is just exceptional on all levels.
I love that movie. And I was like, there's no way it wins. There's no way a movie like that wins, and then it did. So that was like the last time I enjoyed. It was like 2 years ago, but that was like the only time I can enjoy or remember loving the end of the Oscars. Besides that time they messed up and announced the wrong winner. That was amazing, but that had nothing to do with the movie that won.
All right. I think we got to bring this interesting episode of Movie Talk to a close.
Friday the 13th, what could go wrong?
Vinny, Jeff,
What could go
thank you so
wrong?
much for all your time today. Adam in the booth, Dorian in the live chat, thank you for all your hard work as well. You guys know where to go after this. On over to Collider Live, and then after that, go to Collider Ladies Night. It's so much fun. Guys, do not leave any of our videos on the Collider Video YouTube channel without liking and sharing it. And have a great weekend. We will see you bright and early Monday morning with a brand new episode of Movie Talk.
Danny Aiello.